Hi everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is our daily show giving you all the latest news from the world of movies with insight into what it actually all means. Joining me as always is AMC's editor-in-chief, John Campia.
Hello, Ashley, and hello, everybody. Happy birthday to me.
Yay!
This is my birthday. I can neither confirm nor deny that I'm already drunk, but we'll see as the show progresses, I suppose. I can also neither confirm nor deny this is water in my water bottle.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So let's get started with this. On May 17th, the new Star Trek film, Star Trek Into Darkness, opens in AMC theaters everywhere. Now, as many of you know, in the first Star Trek film back in 2009, the movie opens with James Kirk's father heroically and single-handedly fighting off an enemy ship so that his crew, wife, and newborn son, James T. Kirk, could escape. The man playing Kirk's father was Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth, making his big screen debut. However, Hemsworth was not the first pick to play the role. In a recent interview, Mark Wahlberg revealed that J.J. Abrams had asked him to play the role of Kirk's father, but that he turned it down. Wahlberg stated, "I remember J.J. Abrams asking me to play Captain Kirk's father in Star Trek. I tried to read the script, but I didn't even understand the words or dialogue or anything. And I said, I couldn't do this. I think you're really talented, but I couldn't do it." Then I saw the movie and I was like, holy bleep. He did a great job. John, how do you think Mark Wahlberg being the first Star Trek may have changed the film?
I think it actually may have changed a lot. I don't know if it would have changed a lot as far as that movie in and of itself because the character was written. But I guarantee you, number one, if Mark Wahlberg had played Kirk's father, I believe in the next film, Star Trek Into Darkness, which is opening here soon, I bet they would have had a flashback of some sorts just to take advantage of the fact that they got Mark Wahlberg in there. So I think that would have changed it a little bit. But I think the bigger change, and this is where it gets interesting, this was Chris Hemsworth's first big screen debut. And I looked around a little bit, and I'm fairly certain that he was not cast yet as Thor. So here's where it gets fun to speculate. Had Chris Hemsworth not got the role in Star Trek, and it was a small role, would he have been Thor? Would we be looking at a different Thor now when we went to go see Avengers and Thor 2? Would it be a different guy other than Hemsworth? And I think that's the part that gets really interesting. Look, I actually think he did a great job as Kirk's father in that, that one scene. And it is funny when you talk to people that still don't realize that was Chris Hemsworth. They go, wait a minute, that was Thor, that dude? Yeah, he looked completely different, clean shaven, short hair, a little bit lighter. It looks like a totally different guy, but I have to think those are the two things that would change. Number one, I'm not sure that he would have been Thor, which would have changed Marvel movie history. And then I think, although it wouldn't have affected the first Star Trek movie having Mark Wahlberg in there, I think having Wahlberg in there probably would have caused JJ or some of the studio guys to say, let's write in one or two flashbacks and bring Wahlberg back. And so with those two things, those are the things I think that would have changed. So it's pretty interesting when you get to hear about who could have played certain roles. I think that would have been interesting.
Good points. There was a lot of excitement when it was announced that not only would James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender be returning as Professor X and Magneto in the upcoming X-Men Days of Future Past, but that Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart would be joining them as well as the older versions of the same characters. However, McAvoy this week claimed that in an interview with Empire magazine that the older and younger versions of the characters would not actually have any scenes together. McAvoy said this, "I don't think we get any scenes together, sadly. I don't think there's any future self talking to future past." Do you think fans will be disappointed by this news?
Yeah, I do, because I'm a fan and I am disappointed. I was really, this is one of those geek boner moments where, wait a minute, they're bringing McKellen and Stewart in to be alongside Fassbender and McAvoy? This is amazing. And you just have this vision in your head of some kind of time rift where all four of them are standing together in a room and, talk and diatribe and whatever and see what actually turns out. See McKellen and Fassbender together in the same Magneto outfit, that just would have been badass. Look, I still trust Bryan Singer. It's going to be great. And it's disappointing that we're not going to see these guys together, that we're not going to see the older and the younger versions together in scenes together. But it's not devastating. I mean, listen, this movie will still work. The guys are still in the film. Sad that they're not going to be in it together in the same scenes. Yeah, but they're still there. And I think the other thing to remember is this, is that the main crux of the movie is not the four of their characters. It's not like that's the epitome of what the story of X-Men of Days of Future Past is. It just would have been a really nice little wink, nod of the cap to the fans. I would have loved to have seen it. I know a lot of people would have loved to have seen it, but oh, well, it's not. But let's not think that's going to make or break the movie. Let's not overreact. Disappointed? Yes. Going to destroy it just because that one scene isn't happening? No, that's not going to happen. Well, listen, folks, we've come to that part of the show for Mailbag. What we do is we take your questions that you send in to us and answer them on air. If you'd like your question asked during the show, make sure to email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Once again, that's amcmovietalk@gmail.com. And every day we'll select a bunch of emails and answer them during the show. Right now, Ashley's got a few of them already selected out. So, Ashley, what do we got?
Sir, I do. Juan Carlos writes, I enjoy listening to John's comments on the superhero brand in general, although I may disagree at times. With superheroes coming out in force, I was wondering what's your take on the Incredibles 2 movie? In doing research, there's nothing in the works, although Brad Bird said that he wouldn't mind doing another one. I know it can be a long process, but with sequels coming out in force, I wanted your opinion if this time is now or in the near future to write and make an Incredibles 2.
The time for Incredibles 2 was 4 years ago. The time for Incredibles 2 was 2 years ago, last year, today, tomorrow, and forever. They should have done an Incredibles 2 by now. Look, I understand Brad Bird with the success of The Incredibles, which, you know, you can name 8 or maybe 5 different Pixar films to me, and I'll say, oh, that's my favorite Pixar film. You mention Up, and I'll say, oh, that's my favorite Pixar film. You mention Wall-E, oh, that's my favorite Pixar film. The Incredibles, that's my favorite Pixar film. I love so many of them. But I can understand that with the success that he had with The Incredibles, and obviously with Mission Impossible, and now he's got that new one coming out. I believe they're calling it Tomorrowland, or they might have. It was called 1947. And I think they changed the name to Tomorrowland that he's doing with George Clooney. It's understandable that he's kind of busy. But, you know, The Incredibles is just one of those films that was so special. It was the first Pixar film that I watched that I really went, you know, Pixar, the secret to Pixar is that they do not make kids' films. They make kid-friendly films because there's so much of the themes and the topics and the dialogue and everything in The Incredibles that is really aimed at adults. Because when you're talking about, you know, parents in their late 40s or 50s looking back on their glory days, reminiscing, trying to capture, you know, the glory of their youth and struggles with marriage and family, that's not content targeted at 8, 9-year-olds. That's adult themes that are kid-friendly but not kid themes. And that's the genius of Pixar with all their animated films, why everybody loves them so much. But The Incredibles was really special on that level. It really was the most adult of their films so far. And maybe the funniest, one of the most enjoyable, like I said, Up, Wall-E, there's Ratatouille, there's so many of them, all the Toy Story films. But I mean, look, I'm starting to lose hope that we're going to see Incredibles 2. Because, I mean, we are seeing Pixar starting to do sequels. I mean, they did Cars 2, unfortunately. They've got Monsters University coming out, which actually looks like it could be really, really good. They're talking about Finding Nemo 2. And those are all great. But the one film, while maybe not their best film, The Incredibles is the one that demands the sequel the most. This is a film that is ripe for a sequel, especially when you talk about now the kids have grown up a little bit. There's so many different things you could do. But as each year goes past, I got to tell you, I'm losing hope. I don't know that they're ever going to get back around to doing The Incredibles. So right now, I'd say it's a 50-50 shot. I don't think we're going to see or hear about one in the next 3 years. But whether we find if we're going to get one between 3 and 5 years from now, that's the question. If it doesn't happen in that window, that 3 to 5 years from now window, I'm going to say I give up. I'm going to say I don't think it's actually going to happen.
I love that movie. I'm
so
sad.
Do I
love it.
All right, what else do we got?
German Cardenas writes, hey guys, a big fan of the show. Since the success of the first Mortal Kombat Legacy, director Kevin Lacharon has just released a trailer for the second season of MK Legacy and has announced that he will direct a reboot of the 1995 and 1997 Mortal Kombat films. So my question is, do you guys believe that the new reboot Mortal Kombat film will be a success, or do you think it will fall apart just like the previous MK films?
The original Mortal Kombat film was awesome. I mean, it was so bad, but it was so awesome. So, I mean, when I was younger, I must have watched that movie like 30, 40 times. The second Mortal Kombat, I was really excited about because, damn, Dennis, help me out here a little bit. The guy who played the Highlander, Christopher Lambert, or Lambert, however he likes to pronounce his name. The guy who played the Highlander. He was in it playing Raven. He was Raven in the first one. And what did they do with the second one again? I can't remember if they changed Raiden or they gave him a bigger role or whatever like that. Who knows? I just remember the second one sucked. And I maybe watched it twice. But here's the thing. I know Warner Brothers has it on the stove. Warner Brothers, New Line, I believe, has it on the stove. And they're planning on doing another Mortal Kombat movie. The director said they're going to do another Mortal Kombat movie. But for every movie that comes out, there are 5 projects that never get made where the directors say, we're making this. I don't believe this Mortal Kombat reboot is actually going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there are a lot of video game adaptation movies sitting out there, video games waiting to be adapted into films that are much more popular right now, that actually have a following right now, and don't have bad movies in their history to kind of sour an incarnation in today's environment. So I think that it's going to be really challenging for the director and for Warner Brothers and New Line to actually come up with something that they think the audiences out there are going to go and see. Of course, it's possible they can make something that's really good, but just because something's good doesn't mean people are going to go out and see it. Look, nobody saw Beasts of the Southern Wild. And that movie's wonderful. So you can make a wonderful movie, doesn't mean people are going to go see it. I don't think people trust in the Mortal Kombat name as far as movies go anymore. So I'm going to say it's a 30% chance. 30% chance. Like 50% chance we'll see an Incredibles 2. 30% chance that we'll actually see a Mortal Kombat movie regardless of what any of these guys say.
Kevin Robinson writes, when are they going to announce Adam Warlock as part of the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm kind of surprised that this has not been brought up yet, seeing as he is one of the holders of the Infinity Gems. The gems that went together form the powerful Infinity Gauntlet, and is a frequent member of the Guardians. This has been bothering me now for a while, and just wanted to know your guys' thoughts on the matter.
I don't think, I mean, this is going to be heartbreaking to you, Kevin, but I don't think Adam Warlock, they have any plans to have Adam Warlock in the movie. And that's okay. Now, let's call a spade a spade. While I really like Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic books, and I only read them not too long ago because, they started talking about maybe doing a movie of them. The fact of the matter is, it's going to be difficult to do a movie about a team of heroes that we've never met, that most people have never heard of. I mean, come on, really, who's heard of Rocket Raccoon? There's a team member named Rocket Raccoon. How many non-comic book fans out there have ever heard of Rocket Raccoon? Somewhere around zero. So you've got Drax the Destroyer, who nobody's heard of, Rocket Raccoon, that nobody's heard of. So you have these 5 characters. Nobody's heard of Star-Lord. So you've got to introduce all these characters, which means you got to limit the size of the team and limit who's in there. Now, I know that maybe Adam Warlock is, higher ranked on your preference list as to which characters they're actually going to have in the movie, as opposed to some of the ones they're actually having. That's understandable. But they do have to keep it to a certain number, and they've got a plan as to why. So look, I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible that Adam Warlock could at some point pop up in there, but I believe that they do not have any plans for an Adam Warlock to be there. And look, the most important thing in the world is not to stick completely accurate to the comic book. That's why some comic book movies fail, because they try too hard to stick too true to the comic book. You got to not worry about that when you're making an adaptation like this. You have to just make the best movie you can. You have to adapt it, because just because something works really well on a printed page, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll work on the big screen. Hence the word adaptation. You take it, you change it in such a way so that it works best in this new medium. And in a 2-hour movie, you got to limit the characters, limit how much is going on so you can actually enrich it as much as you can leading into the Avengers 2. So Adam Warlock probably won't be there, and I really don't think that's that bad of a thing. Maybe disappointing, but not that bad of a thing.
Life goes on.
Life goes on.
Joshua Ibarra writes, hey guys, love the show, watch it all the time. Just wondering, with J.J. Abrams now directing Star Wars, what are the chances of seeing a teaser for Star Wars, like a title sequence or a motion picture poster, kind of like Chasing Fires in the Star Trek previews?
Once again, I will refer to the famous song often used by Vincent J. McMahon in the professional wrestling organization, the WWE. No chance in hell No. It's never going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a movie that they've just announced that's 2.5 years away. So there's no way they're going to buy ad space. Do you know how expensive trailer space in front of Star Trek is going to be? There's no way they're going to buy ad space in front of Star Trek for a movie that they don't even have a cast announced for yet that's coming in 2.5 years. Never going to happen. And on top of that, true story, I actually had lunch yesterday with a vice president of Paramount Pictures. And of course, Paramount is putting out Star Trek. And while we did not discuss it, I guarantee you Paramount is pissed. They're absolutely pissed that right now, when you talk about J.J. Abrams, the big story is Star Wars, not Star Trek. They hate the fact that they've announced J.J. doing Star Wars at this particular time. I bet you they would have given anything to have them hold off on making the announcement that J.J. was doing it until after Star Trek got released. And come to think of it, maybe that's why they announced it so early. Maybe they want to mess with Star Trek, I bet. I'm just speculating. So I can guarantee you, there is no way that Paramount would allow a J.J. Abrams directing Star Wars picture or title screen or just some fat guy scratching his butt saying JJ. And they're not even going to let that happen. None of that is coming. So, I mean, it would be fun. It would absolutely be fun. I would get excited if I was sitting in a theater watching Star Trek on May 17th and all of a sudden just the logo Star Wars came up for 3 seconds and disappeared. I would lose my mind. I would completely lose my mind. It would be awesome. But there is absolutely zero chance that that's going to happen at all. Did I leave any room for ambiguity there?
No, not at all.
No? Not going to happen. All right.
Christian Swanson writes, "Greetings, my name is Christian. I found the show a few months ago on YouTube and just about cried tears of joy. You guys are so awesome. If Superman Returns actually became a huge hit back in 2006, do you think a Superman-Batman film like the one that was teased in I Am Legend or a Justice League film would have been made already? Was it a failure of Superman Returns that no plans were made so quickly for a crossover film? Or even other standalone DC films like Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Arrow, or Aquaman?"
I think there's actually two parts to that question. Number one, do we think that the financial failure of Superman Returns hindered the progression of what DC was able to do? And the second question is, if it was a huge success, or was also the failure the reason we don't see the spinoffs? I think, number one, yes, the financial failure, although it's hard to call any movie that makes over $200 million a financial failure. So we'll just say that's a matter of perspective, okay? But it didn't do as well as they were hoping. So is the fact that Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, which, by the way, was a very bad comic book movie, but I thought a pretty good movie. And I know a lot of people get angry at me when I say that. I actually think Superman Returns was a pretty good movie, although I admit it's a pretty bad comic book movie. But that's a whole discussion for another day. But if it had been more successful, I think you would have seen Warner Brothers been more aggressive, if you will, in developing their DC universe of all their characters. Would they have done a Batman crossover film with the Christopher Nolan Batman and Christian Bale playing the role? I don't think so. I don't think Christopher Nolan wanted anything to do with crossovers. I think he created his Batman universe very isolated from what could be his broader DC universe. I don't think you would have seen aliens or superpowers or anything like that in a Christopher Nolan universe. I don't think he would have allowed it. So I think we would have had to have waited for Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale to be done with Batman anyway before we've seen a crossover like that. But definitely Brandon Routh and that Superman would have been a part of anything having to do with Justice League moving forward. Now, on the other hand, when talking about the topics of other DC characters, you mentioned guys like the Flash, Green Arrow, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. There are other things that held them up. It wasn't the quote-unquote failure of Superman Returns that held those up. Aquaman is just a dumb character. That is his biggest weakness. I mean, we see Family Guy makes fun of it all the time. Like, in Family Guy, there's this great scene of a guy attacking a woman on the beach, and he's pinning her down on the ground, and she's yelling, "Help, help, help!" And then you see Aquaman come up out of the water and just yell at him from the water, "Hey, you better stop that! You better stop. We're going to throw this starfish at you." And the rapist is just kind of laughing at him. And then there was a Wonder Woman script. And I actually, not many people are even allowed to know this, I actually read the Wonder Woman script. And the fact that it was really bad is probably the thing that held it up. I think they wanted to do it. So, and Flash, they tried to do Flash, but they just couldn't get a Flash project to where they wanted it to be. It had nothing to do with what Superman did. It was all about Flash and that individual project. So that's what held up the individual projects, not the success or, definition of failure of Superman Returns. Well, folks, we have run out of time. Thanks so much for joining us. But listen, while I got you, before you do anything else, stop what you're doing. Click that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Theaters YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, entertainment, and of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show. And listen, if you want an audio-only version of this show, jump down into the description of this video, and you'll find links to iTunes and Stitcher Radio, so you can hear an audio-only version on your commute to work or at work or whatever it is you're doing, trying to drown out your boyfriend or girlfriend. That is usually quite a popular use of this thing. Listen, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. And once again, click that subscribe button and go out to a movie tonight. Head on over to amctheaters.com to check out all the theater and showtime and your movie ticket information. I want to thank our host today, Miss Ashley Mova.
Thanks
So much, Ashley.
Thank you, guys.
And thank to you guys. And listen, the most important part of this show is not what I have to say up here. The most important part is what you have to say. So jump on down into the comments section, leave your thoughts on any or all the topics that we've discussed here today. Until next time, my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.